specializing in United States presidential, gubernatorial, and Senate elections, and she will be the commencement address speaker today at Maharishi University of Management. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And our guest today is Ms. Candy Crowley. She is CNN's award-winning chief political correspondent, specializing in United States presidential, gubernatorial, and Senate elections. Ms. Crowley will be giving the commencement address at Maharishi University of Management later today. Ms. Crowley, thank you so much for taking the time to come into the studio and come on the show today.
I am excited to be here. You know, radio was my first love, so I just think it's one of the really purest form of communication in so many ways, you know, because it gives the visuals kind of left to the audience. So they're like, if they haven't seen you or they don't know you, they're imagining what you look like. If you're telling them a story, they're imagining the story. So I heart radio.
Well, we have that in common then. Let me ask you, when you were a young woman in high school, did you ever imagine yourself doing what you're doing today?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I have a story that I tell that'll be part of the speech, but it's, I think I'm one of those examples of how you need to dream big and always realize, though, that somehow the universe might have even bigger dreams than that for you. I thought when I graduated college, I thought I was engaged to a man and I was going to move to California with him and we were going to have 5 kids and I was going to write the great American novel and iron his shirts while he went to work and I took care of the kids. And so none of that happened except for things that I couldn't possibly have imagined or dreamt about when I was even in college have happened. Wow. So sometimes it's good to let life dream for you.
Right. And who inspired you as a young person?
You know, I hate to be really cliche about this, but my dad was really influential. I had all brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only girl. And he was kind of ahead of his time, I think, at least for his World War II generation, which was, go do it, go do it. I never ever got the sense that I couldn't be, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew I could be whatever it was. You know, he was sort of that. So he was, you know, to me, he was sort of socially advanced in the sense of the way he looked at the universe. I think he gave me that. I think when I began to look at this business, there are plenty of folks. I mean, even today, I mean, I'm a big Brian Williams fan from NBC. He's a friend, but he's just also someone I think, you know, does great work. There were Pauline Fredericks, who was long ago and was not broadcasting or doing journalism when I got into it, but nonetheless, there was a girl there, you know. Leslie Stahl, sort of was like, you know, a half a generation away. I always thought she was amazing. Right. So.
And you certainly have made it easier for young women that are out there to get into the business, to be successful, to feel that there is not a barrier.
You know, I hope so. I mean, you know, it's never anything you do purposely. You know, you don't go sit out and say, okay, I'm going to make, you know, but if that is true, then that is great. And that, you know, makes it worthwhile. I think more than anything, you want to be able to say, particularly when it comes to television, when it comes, you know, we're such a visual group now, obviously, that, you know, I'm clearly not the 20-something blonde that are currently on TV. But, you know, you can do it your way. You can be who you are and do what you want. You might have to work a little harder. You might have to be that much better. And as I used to tell my kids, and I had boys, I didn't have daughters, but I used to say, you have to be so good at what you do that they can't ignore you. And that was sort of, you know, and that's what I like young people to know, is just be so good they can't ignore you.
What a great message. Was there a time when you actually made the decision, I'm going into journalism? And if so, what was your first assignment?
You know, no, there wasn't. It was one of those kind of things where, again, I wanted to write the great American novel, and then I realized that they don't just pay you to write American novels. You have to do it and then see if they'll give you money for it. So I needed money, and there was a split shift open in a radio station where you could do, where I did morning drive, traffic reports. This is in Washington, and cop reports and fire reports. So I made the rounds, made the calls, and then would type up for the anchor. Here's what's going on in the traffic. Here's what went on overnight in terms of, you know, homicides and this and that and the other. And I'm almost an accidental journalist. I fell in love with journalism as I was doing it, not ahead of time.
So and then you found yourself in there, and then you were a fish in water. You felt comfortable
Yes,
in that.
absolutely. I mean, and then once you're kind of in that track, I thought, at one point, there was a cell block takeover by some inmates in Washington D.C. It was the most exciting, terrifying thing I've ever done. And then when I realized that you knew stuff, 5 seconds before someone else did, I love that feeling, that kind of knowledge is power feeling. And so that's when I began to get really hooked on journalism.
Now, you've been covering politics for years. Has the political climate in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country changed since you began?
Sure, it absolutely has. There's less intimacy to it, I will say, in terms of just as a reporter. When you first started out, when you came to Iowa, and I'm sure you all can attest to this, you could get in the car with a candidate because they were running around in a van with a couple of aides, generally that were family, that they weren't paying, and you could jump in and kind of really get a sense of the guy. Contrast that to when Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama came into Iowa for the first time 4 years ago. They were complete rock stars. You couldn't get near them, whether you were a journalist or just your average citizen. It was just tough to do. So everything's gotten larger, more circus-like. And I think just in terms of the tone, and I think for the past 10 years, I love the internet. I am an information junkie. I'm a First Amendment rah-rah person. But the anonymity of the internet, I think, has allowed some of the political dialogue to become really coarse and really bitter because people can say whatever they want and not be held accountable for it.
And do you ever get frustrated with that infighting, with the bickering and personal attacks that go on?
Always, always. I have to say, though, and when I tell people this, because people just, Congress, as we all know, has like a 13% approval rate or something, the parts are better than the whole. For some reason, like I have met very few senators or congressmen or mayors that I thought, ugh, geez, there's someone who's really out to bilk the public. Generally, I've been impressed. There's something about the whole that turns toxic, but the parts are really good.
Well, that's a good note. That's something good for us to know, and that's been my experience as well. All the players seem very good. It's just when they get into dialogue, it really takes a dip down.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Crowley, a question. I'm sure you receive many requests to be a graduation speaker. What made you decide to come to be the commencement speaker at Maharishi University of Management here in Fairfield, Iowa?
I'm a Transcendental Meditator. I lived in Iowa, by the way, for 5 years, a long time ago, when my kids were very little. A friend of mine who is also on the board of trustees here, Bob Roth, said, hey, would this be something that you would entertain? And I said, sure. First of all, because I think it's just an amazing place. But second of all, I'd never seen it. So it really was, selfishly, I wanted to come see what was going on here. And I wanted to see the students, and we got a chance at the awards ceremony to do a little bit of that. I wanted to see the campus. I wanted to see the town. And so it was kind of a selfish, okay, good trip. I'll do that.
Great. And tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing or the involvement you've had with the David Lynch Foundation.
I just, I help when I can. I haven't been, I have done some emceeing for them and bringing people on, and there's others that are much more steeped in, I took up TM maybe after the last election, 2008. So have not been doing it that long compared to these 30 and 35 year folks. But I love being helpful whenever I can because they do. This is taking TM to prisons, to inner city schools, now to wounded vets with PTSD. They do. I've seen the power that it has over when you compare it to these lives, unstressed life, everybody has their own thing, but and I just think, oh my goodness, this has the power to so simply change one life at a time, and the big picture, of course, is then the world.
I heard you speak recently at a Lynch Foundation event, and you had such deep empathy and feeling for veterans, especially those veterans that were suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. I was very deeply moved by your talk. And tell us about that and your connection to those soldiers.
There is something about it. First of all, I think that they are, most of them, so young. And they see things that most of us don't see, do things most of us don't do. And they come back, and it's the hidden wounds, I think, that sort of get to me the most. But even the older veterans, the World War II, and that's, clearly we're losing them by the hundreds every day. But even the World War II vets I talk to, Vietnam vets, the Korean War vets, the Bosnian, there's still their life changes. We change their life kind of as a country, because that's, on us. And so I just feel that their stories the brave part really comes when they get home.
Wow.
The brave part sometimes is in the living in the civilian world, and I think they continue to show courage. And if I can do some little thing to say, listen to this story, because I think if people just heard their stories, that's all. I just want to be the person that goes, listen, because I think when you hear these individual stories of these vets, either what they're going through or what they went through or what they dream of, it doesn't matter. They just move you. They just really do.
Right. Well, you certainly moved me when you spoke that time.
Oh.
And I want to thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to come on. This is a special edition of Speaking Freely, KRUU-LP, 100.1 FM. My name is Dennis Raimondi. And again, my guest today is Candy Crowley, who is CNN's award-winning political correspondent, specializing in United States presidential, gubernatorial, and Senate elections. And she will be the commencement address speaker today at Maharishi University of Management. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.